All right, let's get into it. Imagine this. It's a dark night on a Georgia interstate. A cop pulls a car over for a blinking turn signal. Seems pretty routine, right? Well, this one stop ends up sparking a massive legal battle that goes all the way up the federal courts and really makes you question the limits of police power. And that brings us to the big question at the heart of this whole thing. Can just 25 seconds, literally less time than it takes to tie your shoes, be enough to violate your constitutional rights? The answer, as you're about to see, is way more complicated than you might think. So let's set the scene. It's 9 o'clock at night, December 2013. Deputy Sheriff Robert McCannon is out on patrol on Interstate 20. He spots a Nissan Maxima, and the driver is a guy named Campbell. The deputy sees the car drift over the white fog line on the shoulder, so he decides to follow him. Now, for a police officer to pull you over, they need something called reasonable suspicion. This is a huge legal deal. It can't just be a hunch or a weird feeling. The officer has to have a specific, objective reason to believe you've broken some law, even if it's just a tiny traffic violation. So what was Deputy McCannon's reasonable suspicion? Well, he said he saw Campbell's car cross that fog line, not once, but twice. But the real clincher for him was the car's left turn signal. It was blinking way, way too fast. And that's the key here. See, Georgia law says your signals have to be in good working condition, and a super fast blink usually means a bulb is about to die. For the deputy, that was all he needed to flip on the lights. And thanks to the dash cam, we have a perfect play-by-play. Just after the 3.5-minute mark, the deputy explains why he pulled him over. He asks where he's going, and then starts writing up a warning ticket. But after he runs the license, the whole vibe of the stop changes. At 11 minutes and 20 seconds in, the questions take a very sharp, very different turn. And boom, this is the moment where the entire case pivots. Deputy McCannon is no longer talking about a blinker. He starts running down a list, asking about counterfeit stuff, illegal booze, marijuana, and then he asks, "You don't have any dead bodies in your car?" Yeah, we are definitely not talking about a traffic ticket anymore. After that whole barrage of questions, McCannon asks if he can search the car. And Campbell says yes, so they search. And in the trunk, tucked away under the carpet, they find a 9mm pistol. Now, because Campbell was a convicted felon, having that gun was a major federal crime. And that discovery is what kicks off the real legal showdown. Campbell gets indicted, but his lawyers immediately file a motion to suppress that gun as evidence. They argued that the only reason the police found it was because of an unconstitutional search, which would be a direct violation of the Fourth Amendment. The whole case really comes down to this one thing, the Fourth Amendment. It's the part of the Constitution that protects all of us from unreasonable searches and seizures. And if the government violates it, the typical penalty is what's called the exclusionary rule, which basically means any evidence they found illegally gets tossed right out of court. So Campbell's lawyers came at this with a two-pronged attack. First, they said the whole stop was bogus to begin with, that a fast blinking light isn't even a real violation. And second, they argued that even if the stop was legit, the deputy illegally dragged it out by asking about drugs and dead bodies, questions that had absolutely nothing to do with a turn signal. And the court's decision? Well, it was kind of wild. They split it right down the middle. They sided with the government on point 1, saying, yeah, the initial stop for the blinker was perfectly legal, but then they sided with the defense on point 2, ruling that the deputy did unlawfully prolong the stop with those unrelated questions. So the stop started out legal, but then it crossed a line and became illegal. So why was it illegal? Because the rules of the game had completely changed, thanks to the Supreme Court. The old rule, from a case called Griffin, was all about overall reasonableness. A few extra seconds for some off-topic questions, no big deal. But then a new case, Rodriguez v. US, came along and just blew that up. It created a super strict, bright-line rule. Any extra time added for an unrelated investigation makes the stop unconstitutional, period. And here's the kicker. The court actually timed it. All those questions about drugs and counterfeits and, well, dead bodies added exactly 25 seconds to the traffic stop. Under the old rules, that would have been totally fine. But under the new Rodriguez rule, those 25 seconds were a constitutional violation. Okay, so the stop was unconstitutional. That means the gun gets thrown out as evidence and Campbell walks free. Case closed, right? Well, not so fast. This is where the story takes one last really surprising legal turn. The court brought up something called the good faith exception. You can think of it as a kind of legal loophole. It says that if a police officer was following the law exactly as it was written at the time, relying on the official court precedents, then the evidence they find can still be used, even if a later court decision says those old rules were wrong. And this timeline just makes it all crystal clear. Deputy McCannon pulled Campbell over back in 2013. At that moment, the old Griffin rule, the overall reasonableness rule, was the law of the land. The super strict new Rodriguez rule didn't even exist yet. The Supreme Court wouldn't create it until 2015, almost a year and a half later. So the deputy was just following the rules that were in the playbook on the night of the stop.
Now, to really get why this matters, you have to understand the whole point of that exclusionary rule. It's not really there to help out the defendant. Its one and only job is to deter police from breaking the rules in the future. It's basically a penalty designed to discourage bad behavior.
So the court's logic went like this. How can we deter police misconduct if the officer wasn't actually committing any misconduct at the time? Deputy McCannon was acting in good faith, just doing his job according to the law as it existed in 2013. The court decided that punishing his police work by throwing out the evidence would serve zero deterrent purpose. And just like that, the gun was allowed in court.
But not everyone on the court was buying it, not by a long shot. In a really powerful dissenting opinion, Judge Martin argued that the government's lawyers hadn't even bothered to bring up the good faith exception themselves. She basically said the court shouldn't be resuscitating arguments the government clearly abandoned, which just goes to show how much debate and disagreement there can be, even at this high level. And so this whole case leaves us chewing on a really big question. When you're on the side of the road, where exactly is the line between a quick, casual question from a cop and an unconstitutional seizure of your person? It shows us how the law is constantly changing and how something that was perfectly fine one day can become a federal case the next, all in the span of 25 seconds.